Hi, this is Andy Kaufman, President of the Institute for Leadership Excellence Development Incorporated. Thank you for joining me for this episode of the People and Projects Podcast. You know, this is one of our What Did I Learn This Week episodes, and what did I learn about asking questions? Well, you know what? It's an interesting week. First of all, I got the opportunity to talk to a listener, and he's going to introduce an upcoming episode, so that's always fun. I also got to do a keynote for a group of C-level executives this week, and then a 2-day project management workshop for a hospital network. So it's been a great week. But I have to tell you, earlier today, I'm recording this on Friday, I interviewed a guy named Bob Tiede who wrote a book called Great Leaders Ask Questions. He blogs at leadingwithquestions.com. Now, I don't think it's news to any of us that asking questions is really a good leadership thing, right? I mean, we've talked about this. In fact, back on episode 150, if you haven't listened to it yet, Michael Bungay Stanier wrote the book, The Coaching Habits. Great episode in that the book really helped me, and hopefully the interview will help you. But it's a great discussion on questions and the habits of it. But it made me think, what have I learned about questions this week? Because, at that C-level keynote is one of those groups that each person goes around and they talk about some of the key issues that they're dealing with, and then other people can talk into it. It's actually really cool. But I would say the most valuable contributions on that day were when one of their other C-level executives that are part of this group would ask a question. It wasn't what they said, it was when they asked the question. Now, when I was talking with Bob Tiede today, he had a quote from this person named Dorothy Leeds. And I thought it was an interesting quote. She says, when you want to persuade, you'll always get further by asking a question than by making a statement. Think about that. When you're trying to persuade, when you're trying to influence someone, you're going to get further if you ask a question than if you make a statement. Now, the reason why this stuck out to me is the day before I read that, I was sitting with a friend who, as best I could tell, was making a decision that wasn't a great decision from my perspective. So I was trying to persuade this person to think differently. Now, did I ask questions? Well, yeah, some, but I spent a lot more time enumerating the reasons why I thought this was not a good question. The next day, I opened up Bob's book and I read this Dorothy Leeds quote. I thought, oh man, you know what? I should have been asking more questions. And, for example, in a situation like this, it could have been some things like, give me the backstory. Help me understand how you came to this conclusion that this would be a good idea, right? That could be a question. Now, it doesn't work with leading questions like, all right, ask a question. How could you be such an idiot to think, no, that's not what we're talking about. What if I would have said something like, well, what other options did you consider? What are some other options? Whether you pick those or not, what are some other options that you'd pick? What if I would have said something like, what? This is a Roger Martin question. What would have to be true for this decision to be the best one? I found that to be helpful in a lot of ways when it comes down to leading projects and people. What must be true for that decision that you're going to make be the best decision? And then, another question goes back to the 10-10-10 from Susie Wells. Man, that was an episode probably 4 years ago on the podcast. The idea of the 10-10-10 is you say, how are you going to feel 10 minutes from now with this decision you're going to make? And the person I'm thinking about, he's probably going to think, yeah, pretty good. How about 10 months from now? Well, I don't know. How about 10 years from now? The thing I like about the 10-10-10 is it forces us to think further out, not just the immediate. So here's the point I want to make in this episode. In the coming week, when you're trying to influence someone, how about this? Try asking questions instead of telling. Well, Michael Bungay Stanier says when someone on your team comes up this next week and they go, hey, what do you think we should do? It's like putting cheddar on a mousetrap, right? We just want to pounce it. I'm telling you, stay away from it. Use that as a trigger to say, to yourself, could I ask a question? What would be some questions here to kind of help think it through? When you're trying to influence someone in the week ahead, ask questions. Hey, I'd love your feedback on these sessions. You can write to me at show@peopleandprojectspodcast.com. Well, thank you for joining me for this episode of What Did I Learn This Week? Have yourself a great week. Hey, you know what? I'd love your feedback on these video episodes, and you can send... Hey, I'd love your feedback on these video episodes. You can get my contact information. Hey, I would love your feedback on these